Thank you, Mr. President. I've come to the floor many times to talk about for-profit colleges and universities. This is a problem and challenge that we face. What you need to know are three numbers to understand the for-profit and college and university industry in America. By way of preface, this is the most heavily subsidized private business in the United States of America. What are we talking about? The largest, the University of Phoenix, Kaplan University, DeVry University, Rasmussen, Corinthian. You've heard all the names because they advertise constantly. And the money they use to advertise comes from federal taxpayers. There are three numbers. If I were a college professor or a law school professor, I'd say this is going to be on the final. Three numbers on for-profit colleges and universities. 10% of high school graduates attend for-profit colleges and universities. 10%. 20% of all the federal aid to education goes to for-profit colleges and universities. Why so much? They charge so much. Their tuition's so high. 10% of the students, 20% of the federal aid to education, 44%. 44% of all the student loan defaults in America are at for-profit colleges and universities. 10% of the students, 44% of the defaults. Why? They charge so much that the students can't finish their education or they end up with a worthless diploma. That is the reality. There's a second reality. This industry is in serious economic trouble. Last week, we got news of another federal investigation of a for-profit college. In a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the University of Phoenix, the largest for-profit college and university, revealed that it's under investigation by the Federal Trade Commission for unfair and deceptive practices. This news just comes weeks after the Center for Investigative Reporting published a story about the University of Phoenix's thinly veiled, dubious marketing and recruiting efforts on military bases. Exploitation of our men and women in uniform. Over the past several years, the University of Phoenix has spent millions of dollars to sponsor events, including dances, parties, concerts on military bases. Because they love our men and women in uniform? No, because they want to sign them up. To the University of Phoenix, these sponsorships were simply advertising and marketing events to enroll more men and women in uniform. When you serve our country, we show our appreciation by saying there's a GI Bill waiting for you at the end of your service. In fact, in some cases while you're still serving, and for your family too, so that you will be prepared after you've served our country to have a good life with good education, training, job opportunities. These for-profit colleges and universities could smell an opportunity to make even more money. The University of Phoenix is after these men and women in uniform. They're after tuition assistance dollars. TA is a program that provides up to $4,500 a year so service members can use it toward post-secondary education. And guess what? The money isn't counted in the federal 90-10 calculation that caps the amount of money these for-profit schools can receive from the federal government. Did you hear that? 90% of their revenue comes from the federal government. That's why for-profit colleges and universities are the most heavily subsidized private for-profit businesses in America. To for-profit colleges, the money from service members and veterans is unlimited money. All they have to do is sign them up. And that's what they're doing with these sponsorships. After the article was published, I wrote to Secretary Ash Carter, Department of Defense, to ask him to take action. The University of Phoenix reportedly is in clear violation of executive orders limiting the access of these schools to our men and women in uniform. The Department of Defense has confirmed to me that they've opened an inquiry in the matter. During the Senate's recent consideration of the National Defense Authorization Act, I filed an amendment to require the department to post information on federal and state investigations and lawsuits against schools on its online education resources for service members. As part of the tuition assistance program, Department of Defense has created what it calls TA Decide. This allows service members to find information about specific schools when deciding where to use their tuition assistance benefits. It includes information like graduation rates and default rates. And you know why? Because once that service member has used up that GI Bill, it is gone. And if they waste it on one of these for-profit colleges and universities that gives them little or nothing for their GI Bill, they don't get a second chance. Now, of course, service members need access to this information. Publicly traded companies like the University of Phoenix have to disclose the information to the SEC when they're under investigation. Members of the military should know that, as well as the general public. It only makes sense. My amendment wasn't taken up during the Senate's debate, but last week 12 senators joined me in writing Secretary Carter. This common sense step to ensure better information to service members about their education options is one the Department of Defense needs to make. I also want to say a word about another for-profit college that is notorious for its exploitation of students, Ashford University. Ashford University first came to my attention when former Senator Tom Harkin of Iowa had an investigation. He took a look at this so-called university in his home state of Iowa. You know what he found? He found that they had purchased a small Catholic girls' college and purchased their accreditation and then reopened it under the name of Ashford University. Do you know how many faculty members there were at Ashford? One faculty member for every 500 students. It wasn't a real university. It was an online scam. They announced last week they're closing down their campus in Iowa. What a heartbreak that must be for the people of Iowa to lose such a stalwart higher education citizen. That's the reality. I've run into students in Illinois who said, just graduated from college. I said, where'd you go? And they said, Ashford. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a disappointment. You've wasted your time and your money, you're deep in debt, and that diploma, sadly, is worth very little. The tide is turning against the for-profit colleges and universities, and the question is whether this Senate, this Congress, this government will step up once and for all and defend those young men and women who are wasting their time and their money and taxpayers' dollars, and in many cases, GI Bill benefits on these worthless for-profit schools. It is time for us to wake up to this reality. I'm glad to see that this industry is finally facing its day of reckoning.